All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Cornish Revival, the second coming of the Celtic language, written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. Toxic masculinity, double bind, why the obvious became forbidden and what comes next. I watched a man lose his livelihood over a sigh. Not a leer, not a touch, not a threat, a sigh. He'd managed a logistics team for 11 years. A female subordinate filed a complaint because she felt uncomfortable with the way he exhaled during her performance review. HR suspended him pending a trauma-informed investigation. His personnel file, his metrics, his decade of clean reviews, all of it became irrelevant the moment she used the word unsafe. The process didn't examine her claim. It processed his guilt. He was guilty of being male and present. That was the whole indictment. The dogma driving this machine has a name your culture won't speak. The female victimhood monopoly. It operates as an unstated axiom beneath every HR policy, every campus tribunal, every hashtag crusade, and every family court motion that treats a woman's accusation as testimony and a man's defense as aggression. It doesn't argue that women deserve protection. That's reasonable. It decrees that a woman's subjective feeling of harm carries more epistemic weight than a man's objective evidence of innocence. Her discomfort is an event. His documentation is an excuse. The burden of proof flips, due process dissolves, and the institution nods solemnly because it has swallowed a single poisonous proposition that women are morally invincible because they are structurally fragile. And there is the contradiction, sitting in the middle of the room like an elephant in a therapy session. The doctrine insists women are powerful enough to dismantle civilizations, reroute economies, and reshape language, but simultaneously so fragile they cannot survive a sigh, a question, or a raised eyebrow without institutional rescue. Which is it? Can you topple patriarchies or can you not withstand a frown? The answer, of course, is whichever framing extracts the most power in the moment. Strength when authority is being claimed, fragility when accountability approaches. The doctrine is not a description of reality. It is a rhetorical switchblade, and it cuts the same direction every time toward the man's throat. I have spent years tracing the grammar of this inversion, and what I can tell you is this: it is not an accident. It is a theology. It has saints, survivors, sacraments, confession of harm, demons, any male who asks for evidence, and heretics, women who dissent. It has replaced the logos, the reasoned word, the ordered truth that a thing is what it is regardless of who says it, with a gynocentric oracle in which truth is determined by the identity of the speaker and the volume of her pain. This book is, among other things, a record of what that replacement costs. It costs men, it costs language. It costs the particular, ancient, stubborn inheritance of a people who once believed that a word meant what it meant, that law bound the accuser as tightly as the accused, and that the world was ordered by something older and sterner than whoever cried loudest in the committee meeting the dogma in one page. Dogma, the female victimhood monopoly official claim. The axiom that female experience is inherently privileged, fragile, and epistemically superior, rendering male testimony structurally suspect and male authority inherently oppressive until proven otherwise. It posits that women occupy a permanent state of potential victimization by men, granting them moral immunity and procedural priority in disputes. Hidden axiom. Male rationality is cold, predatory, and self-interested. Female emotion is warm, truthful, and selfless. Therefore, the male mind is a mechanism of oppression, and the female heart is a mechanism of revelation. Power transfer. Authority transfers from the individual male, who is judged by his potential, to the institutional bureaucracy, which judges him by his compliance. Power shifts from the household and meritocracy to the HR department, the university administration, and the therapeutic state. Men lose the right to define reality. Women gain the right to define it. Socratic question. If a woman lies, is she a victim or a liar? If the doctrine says she is a victim, then the doctrine is unfalsifiable and therefore not true. If she is a liar, then the doctrine is false. Which is it?
Dr. Winona's sacred defense. The fluorescent lights of room 4B hum their corporate hymn.
The male manager sits across the table, his 10-year personnel file, a decade of documented competence, already sealed in a manila envelope marked irrelevant. The female subordinate's 3-sentence email alleging discomfort rests in the center of the table like a consecrated host. I rise. Let us be clear about what this room represents. It is not a tribunal, it is a sanctuary. For millennia, the male voice has been the default frequency of every institution, the pitch at which law, theology, science, and governance were calibrated. That frequency is not neutral. It is the sound of power disguising itself as nature. When this woman typed the word uncomfortable, she did not merely file a complaint, she cracked the edifice. She spoke from a place that no male framework can access, because male frameworks were designed not to access it. Her discomfort is not an opinion, it is revelation. The septic, and there is always a septic, usually male, usually calm, usually reasonable, asks for evidence. But what is evidence within a system that defined evidence itself as that which male cognition deems admissible? You ask her to translate her embodied knowledge into your grammar, your logic, your standard of proof, knowing full well that the translation will always fail. And then you point to the failure as proof she is mistaken. This is the perfect closed circuit of patriarchal epistemology. The woman speaks. The system cannot hear her. The system concludes she said nothing. We are here to break that circuit. Her lived experience is not a claim that requires external validation. It is the validation. When a woman names harm, she is not submitting a hypothesis for peer review. She is offering testimony, and testimony from the marginalized carries an epistemic weight that no detached male observation can replicate. She knows what happened to her body, her nervous system, her sense of safety, in a way that no man, however well-meaning, however well-credentialed, can interrogate without committing a second violation. To cross-examine her is to re-traumatize her. To demand corroboration is to insist she relive the event through a male frame. We will not do that, we will not. His defense, I note, is coherent, it is structured. It references dates, it produces emails demonstrating that his corrections to her work were factually accurate and professionally routine, and this is precisely the problem. Male rationality is convincing. It was built to be convincing, centuries of institutions polishing its surface until it gleams with an authority that feels natural, but is merely familiar. His calm is not innocence. Calm is the temperature of privilege. A man who has never had to fear that his word would be doubted by default can afford composure. His composure is itself a microaggression. It says, I do not need to be believed, because the world has always accommodated my version. Her trembling, by contrast, is data. It is the most honest data in this room. Some will object that this creates an asymmetry, that we presume his guilt and her truth simultaneously, that we invert the burden of proof, that we treat one human being's assertion as gospel and another's as suspicion. To this I say, yes, absolutely, unapologetically, yes. Because symmetry between unequals is not justice. You cannot place on a scale the testimony of a body that has carried the reproductive risk and historical weight of an entire species alongside the testimony of a body that designed the scale and called the result fair. Equity requires asymmetry. The woman's word must weigh more because the world has always arranged itself to make it weigh less. We are not distorting justice. We are correcting a distortion so total that it has become invisible. She is fragile because the world has made her fragile, and that fragility is not weakness. It is moral authority of the highest order. A woman who admits vulnerability in a system designed to punish her for it is performing an act of courage that no male competence review can match. Her sensitivity is not a deficit to be accommodated. It is a gift to be centered. When she says she feels unsafe, the appropriate response is not assessment. It is gratitude. This is why his factual corrections to her work constitute harm regardless of their accuracy. The question is not whether he was right. The question is whether his exercise of authority, correct or not, reproduced a dynamic in which a male voice corrected a female voice inside a hierarchy. He did not build, but from which he benefits. Accuracy is not innocence. Competence wielded without awareness of its power context is a tool of structural violence, however mundane it appears. We do not need to prove his intent. Intent is a male legal fiction designed to protect the powerful from accountability for effects. What matters is impact. She was impacted. That is the trial, that is the verdict. If this means that men must live with a degree of uncertainty about their standing, must second-guess their tone, recalibrate their authority, submit to processes they did not design and cannot fully control, then I would ask them to sit with that feeling for a moment. Just a moment, because women have lived inside that uncertainty for the entirety of civilization, and we called it normal. We now call it what it is, and we will not return to the silence. Her word is the beginning of justice. It is not the evidence before the verdict, it is the verdict. Everything that follows, investigation, process, review, exists not to test her claim, but to honor it, to ritualize it, to ensure that the institution metabolizes her truth and transforms. This is not the absence of justice. This is justice finally arriving and finding that its name was never blind. Its name was always woman. Debunking the dogma on the table. The female victimhood monopoly is not a theory. It is an operating system installed in every HR department, university tribunal, family court, social media platform, and corporate compliance office in the West. Its central decree. Woman's experience is inherently privileged in moral weight, ontologically fragile in nature, and epistemically superior in disputes. Male testimony is suspect by default. Male authority is oppressive until proven otherwise, and proof is never enough, because the standard of proof is itself declared a male weapon. The dogma does not announce itself honestly. It wears the language of safety, care, equity, inclusion, and trauma-informed practice. But strip the vocabulary and the architecture is simple. A woman's word outranks a man's word because she is a woman. Her discomfort is evidence. His defense is aggression. Her tears are data. His composure is pathology. She is accuser, witness, judge, and executioner. 4 offices collapsed into one body, and that body is called credible by institutional decree. This is not justice, it is sacrament, and every sacrament demands a sacrifice. Why it feels holy. The doctrine taps something ancient and real. The male protective instinct toward women, the genuine horror of male violence against women, and the Christian inheritance of defending the vulnerable. It parasitizes these legitimate moral reflexes. It says, you care about women, then you must accept our framework without question. To doubt the framework is to doubt the caring. To demand evidence is to side with the abuser. This is emotional blackmail dressed as ethics. But it works because it exploits the best qualities in men, their willingness to sacrifice, their deference to female suffering, their conditioned chivalry, and turns those qualities into the leash that controls them. The man who objects is not answered. He is named misogynist, inappropriate, unsafe, toxic. The label does the work, the argument cannot. The doctrine also borrows from Christian confession culture. The sinner must acknowledge his sin, repent, and submit to the process of transformation. But in this secular parody, the sin is existence as a man, the repentance is perpetual self-accusation, and the priest is whoever claims victim status loudest. The hidden axiom strip the compassion language and the academic jargon, and one premise drives the entire machine. Male rationality is cold, predatory, and self-interested. Female emotion is warm, truthful, and selfless. Therefore, the male mind is a mechanism of oppression, and the female heart is a mechanism of revelation. This axiom is never stated plainly. It is enacted in every policy that treats a man's factual defense as emotional aggression, in every procedure that treats a woman's subjective distress as proof of harm, in every training module that instructs participants to believe before verifying. The axiom is not new. It is the inversion of the older gynocentric chivalry that treated women as morally purer than men. The Victorians placed women on pedestals. The modern gynocrat places them on witness stands, but decrees their testimony unimpeachable. Same worship, different liturgy. The problem, the axiom is false. Men and women are both capable of rational thought and emotional distortion. Both sexes lie, both sexes self-deceive. Both sexes act from mixed motives. To declare one sex's cognition inherently suspect and the other's inherently pure is not justice. It is prejudice baptized as progress. The power transfer. Follow the power. Who gains jurisdiction when a man is accused on the basis of discomfort? The HR department gains a case, a budget, a training mandate, and a permanent file. The university administration gains a disciplinary process, a compliance officer, and a federal Title IX investigation threat. The family court gains a restraining order, a custody evaluation, and a billing cycle. The therapist priesthood gains a client, a diagnosis, and a treatment plan. The activist gains a story, a hashtag, and a fundraising appeal. The platform gains moderation power, engagement metrics, and advertising revenue. The man loses his reputation, his income, his children, his peace, and his voice. The woman gains protection from scrutiny, immunity from consequence, and institutional backing for whatever she claims. But the real winner is the bureaucracy that mediates between them, the growing apparatus of compliance professionals, diversity consultants, safeguarding officers, and grievance managers whose paychecks depend on perpetual conflict. This is not accidental. The doctrine manufactures the conflicts it exists to manage. It is a closed-loop doctrine of institutional expansion. The protected contradiction. The doctrine holds two contradictory propositions simultaneously and forbids you from noticing. Proposition A, women are powerful. They can lead nations, command armies, topple industries, shatter glass ceilings, and remake civilization. Girl power. The future is female. Proposition B, women are fragile. They cannot withstand a male gaze, a critical question, a blunt opinion, or a contrary argument without suffering institutional-level harm. They need safe spaces, trigger warnings, trauma-informed accommodations, and protection from microaggressions. When a man points out that these propositions cannot both be true, the doctrine responds, "You are using male logic, which is itself a tool of oppression." The contradiction is not resolved, it is weaponized. Proposition A is deployed when power is sought. Proposition B is deployed when accountability approaches. The switch is seamless and the doctrine forbids you from naming it. This is not a bug, it is the design. Power without accountability is the goal. Authority without scrutiny is the mechanism. Protection without reciprocity is the demand. A doctrine that cannot be falsified, that explains every outcome as confirmation of its premises, that treats every counterexample as proof of its thesis, that declares dissent as evidence of guilt, is not a theory. It is dogma of the most totalitarian kind. The fallacy stack catalog the logical moves. The doctrine relies on to survive scrutiny, appeal to emotion. Her feeling of harm replaces evidence of harm. Discomfort becomes injury. Offense becomes jurisdiction. Argument from authority, identity. Her identity as a woman grants her testimony automatic weight. His identity as a man renders his testimony automatically suspect. False dilemma. You either believe her unquestioningly or you side with oppression. There is no third option of evidence, context, or proportion. Genetic fallacy. His argument is dismissed because of who he is, male, privileged, powerful, rather than engaged on its merits. Moving the goalposts. When one accusation fails, another appears. When evidence is lacking, the standard shifts to impact rather than intent. When unsafe proves too vague, microaggression takes its place. Circular reasoning, women are oppressed because they say they are oppressed. The evidence of oppression is the testimony of the oppressed. The testimony cannot be questioned because questioning it proves oppression. Equivocation. Safety slides from physical security to emotional comfort to ideological agreement. Harm slides from bodily injury to hurt feelings to exposure to contrary ideas. Violence slides from physical assault to speech acts to facial expressions. Non sequitur, he corrected her work. Therefore, he created a hostile environment. The conclusion does not follow from the premise. It is imported from the doctrine, not derived from the facts. Red herring. The original claim disappears. The tone, timing, manner, and delivery of the response become the subject. The accused is now defending his demeanor, while the accusation itself goes unexamined. Straw man, his actual argument that due process matters, that evidence should precede verdict, that individuals should be judged as individuals, is reframed as he wants women to suffer or he defends abusers. Special pleading, standards apply to him but not to her. His anger is threatening, her anger is righteous. His ambition is domination, her ambition is empowerment, his preference is control, her preference is a boundary. Each fallacy, examined alone, is a college logic exercise. Stacked together inside an institution that rewards compliance and punishes dissent, they form an apparatus of control that does not need a conscious conspirator. It only needs incentives, vagueness, and the male reluctance to fight back against female-coded distress. The satanic inversion ledger. The doctrine does not merely distort justice. It inverts it systematically, deliberately, and with the confidence of a counter-religion. Track the inversions. Justice, partiality. The blindfold comes off. Justice now peers over her scales to check the gender of the accused. Evidence is weighed differently depending on identity. Due process is rebranded as re-traumatization, strength, threat. Male competence is no longer a service to others. It is reframed as a weapon of domination. The man who builds, provides, protects, leads, and corrects is not honored. He is surveilled. His excellence is evidence against him, weakness, virtue. Fragility is no longer a condition to be overcome. It is a credential to be centered. The more easily offended, the more morally authoritative. Sensitivity is recast as superior perception rather than as vulnerability requiring formation. Truth, narrative. What happened is replaced by how she feels about what happened. Objective facts are demoted to perspectives. Evidence is deconstructed as a tool of power. The question, is it true, becomes who does this truth serve? Responsibility, victimhood. Agency is erased for women and amplified for men. Her choices, words, and actions are contextualized by systems. His choices, words, and actions are essentialized as character. She is acted upon, he acts. Therefore, he is guilty. Protection, control. The man who protects is reframed as the man who controls. Provision becomes leverage. Concern becomes surveillance. Fatherly authority becomes patriarchal oppression. The state replaces the father and calls it liberation. Mercy, submission. Compassion is weaponized. The demand for mercy is actually a demand for surrender. The accused must not merely be punished. He must confess, submit to re-education, and affirm the doctrine that condemned him. The show trial requires the victim's participation in his own immolation. This is the grammar of revolution, not the Marxist kind, which at least had the honesty to name its targets. This is the deeper, older revolt, the revolt against logos itself, against the ordered word, against the principle that truth is independent of the speaker, that evidence outranks emotion, that justice must be blind or she is not justice. The female victimhood monopoly is not a policy. It is a counter-sacrament, and its church is every institution that has surrendered to the scream. The trivium repair. The counterattack begins with the tools Western civilization built for exactly this purpose. The trivium. Grammar, logic, rhetoric, define, reason, persuade. These are not patriarchal weapons. They are the immune system of civilization against exactly this kind of ideological possession. Grammar, defined before you submit. When the accusation uses fog words, inappropriate, unsafe, toxic, harmful, problematic, triggering, microaggression, gaslighting, stop and demand definition, inappropriate under which written rule, With what quoted words? In what context? With what limiting principle? Unsafe in what specific sense? Was there a threat? Was there physical danger? Or was there discomfort, which is not danger? Toxic in what specific behavior? Named, dated, witnessed? Or is toxicity a conclusion in search of evidence? Gaslighting. Was there a deliberate campaign to distort her perception of reality, or was there a factual disagreement she did not win? Do not accept undefined accusations. Definition is not hostility. It is the precondition of justice. An accusation that cannot be defined cannot be answered, and an accusation that cannot be answered is not justice. It is a sentence. Logic. Expose the evasion. When the accuser attacks tone rather than substance, name the move. You are responding to my manner, not to my claim. We can discuss my tone after we address the facts. If the facts support the accusation, my tone does not matter. If the facts do not support the accusation, my tone does not create guilt. When the doctrine treats female distress as proof and male defense as aggression, apply the sex swap test. If a male employee accused a female manager of discomfort, and the female manager produced emails demonstrating factual accuracy in her corrections, would you suspend her? Would you call her composure pathological? Would you treat his feelings as evidence? Or would you demand specificity, evidence, and proportion? If the standard does not survive the sex swap, it is not a standard. It is a preference dressed as principle. When the doctrine claims that women's lived experience is superior to evidence, ask the falsification question. What evidence, if it existed, would change your conclusion? If the answer is nothing, then your position is unfalsifiable. And what is unfalsifiable is not knowledge. It is faith. You are entitled to your faith. You are not entitled to use it as a verdict. Rhetoric. Name the inversion without apology. Speak calmly. Speak precisely. Do not grovel. Do not over-apologize. Do not accept the frame that your masculinity is itself the problem. State the facts. Name the moves. Restore the standard. I will correct discourtesy. I will not confess to an undefined offense. I will cooperate with a fair process. I will not participate in a ritual. If the institution cannot define the rule, quote the words, and apply the standard equally, then the institution is not administering justice, it is administering compliance. And I will not be compliant with my own immolation. This is not aggression, this is the speech of a man who remembers that due process is not a patriarchal conspiracy. It is the inheritance of Magna Carta, the common law, the Constitution, and 2,000 years of Christian and classical civilization that knew what happened when accusation replaced evidence, the natural law restoration. The doctrine fails not only logically but ontologically. It violates the structure of reality that every functioning civilization has recognized. Truth is independent of identity. A lie told by a woman is a lie. A truth told by a man is a truth. The sex of the speaker does not determine the truth of the statement. To claim otherwise is to declare war on epistemology itself, and the casualty is everything that depends on reliable knowledge, which is everything. Justice requires equal law. The same standard must bind both sexes. If discomfort is harm when a man causes it, discomfort is harm when a woman causes it. If competence is threatening when a man displays it, competence is threatening when a woman displays it. If tone matters when a man speaks, tone matters when a woman speaks. Asymmetry in law is not equity. It is tyranny. Authority must correspond to responsibility. A civilization that demands male provision, protection, tax, labor, restraint, and sacrifice, while denying male authority, due process, fatherhood, and speech, is not pursuing equality. It is running a plantation with better marketing. Responsibility without authority is servitude. Authority without responsibility is tyranny. The natural law demands both or neither. Children need fathers. The doctrine's most devastating effect is not on accused men. It is on children who grow up without fathers, because the family court accepted the monopoly's logic. Fatherlessness is not a social inconvenience. It is the single strongest predictor of every social pathology the doctrine claims to fight: poverty, abuse, educational failure, mental illness, criminality, addiction, and suicide. The doctrine does not solve these problems. It manufactures them, then demands more funding to manage the wreckage. Weakness is not virtue. Fragility is a condition to be strengthened, not a credential to be centered. Resilience is a virtue. Stoicism is a virtue. Self-command is a virtue. A civilization that rewards fragility with power trains its citizens to become more fragile. A civilization that rewards resilience with respect trains its citizens to become strong. Which one survives? The natural law answer is clear. The civilization that honors truth, equal law, reciprocity, competence, fatherhood, and resilience endures. The civilization that inverts these does not. The Roman Empire did not fall because it was too patriarchal. It fell because it abandoned the virtues that built it, and among those virtues was the willingness to name reality honestly, even when naming it was uncomfortable. The question that breaks the spell. Every doctrine has a load-bearing assumption. Remove it and the structure collapses. The female victimhood monopoly rests on one assumption, that a woman who lies is still a victim. Test it. If a woman lies about abuse, is she a victim or a liar? If the doctrine says she is a victim of trauma, of systems, of the man she falsely accused, then the doctrine is unfalsifiable. It has no mechanism for distinguishing truth from falsehood. It cannot detect a lie because it has declared lying impossible by definition. And what cannot detect falsehood cannot possess truth. The doctrine is epistemically void. If the doctrine admits she is a liar, then the doctrine is false. It has conceded that women are capable of dishonesty, manipulation, and weaponized accusation. It has conceded that female testimony requires scrutiny like any other testimony. It has conceded that due process exists for a reason, because the innocent exist and some accusers are guilty. Which is it? The doctrine cannot answer. And in that silence, its power breaks. Because once you see that the emperor has no mechanism for detecting falsehood, you see that the entire institutional apparatus, the HR tribunals, the Title IX hearings, the whisper networks, the cancellation campaigns, the therapy speak injunctions is built on a foundation that cannot distinguish between a woman who was harmed and a woman who lied. That is not a justice system, that is a lottery. And every man in the West holds a ticket he never asked for. The restoration begins when men stop apologizing for demanding what every civilization prior to this one considered obvious, that accusation is not evidence, that discomfort is not injury, that identity is not verdict, and that justice without truth is not justice at all. The doctrine will call this answer toxic. Good. A doctrine that cannot survive a question does not deserve to survive an answer. And the answer is, truth exists, evidence matters, due process protects everyone, and no monopoly on victimhood, however loudly sanctified, can stand against the logos that ordered the world. The word is restored. The monopoly is broken. The spell ends here. Meninist reversal, counter-dogma. The Meninist reversal of the female victimhood monopoly. The Meninist move is not to build the same idol with the sexes swapped. It is to undo the inversion. The feminist dogma begins by sanctifying a prior frame. The Meninist reversal begins by making the frame answer to reality. The doctrine on the table is the female victimhood monopoly. Its first trick is to make a moral conclusion feel like a settled premise. The reversal is to force every premise through definition, evidence, reciprocity, proportion, and consequence. The reversal principle. Every feminist dogma in this family performs the same basic operation. It moves authority from observable acts to protected interpretation. The Meninist counter-dogma moves authority back from interpretation to act, evidence, duty, and consequence, from identity to act. Judge what was done, not the moral status assigned to the body of the speaker. From feeling to evidence, treat distress as a signal to investigate, not as proof of the conclusion. From exception to reciprocity. No rule is just if it only works in one direction, from bureaucracy to responsibility. Institutions must prove why their intervention improves justice rather than merely expanding power, from slogan to burden. Every slogan must name its definitions, controls, limiting principle, and falsification test. Axis by axis reversal, feminist inversion, believe women concealed move, shifts the burden of proof from the accuser to the accused, turning due process into a trial by media. Institutional result: zero-tolerance policies that punish the accused before the accuser is verified. Erosion of cross-examination in favor of safety. Meninist reversal: truth is independent of identity. A lie told by a victim is still a lie. A truth told by a perpetrator is still a truth. Due process protects the innocent, not the gender. Feminist inversion: triggered, divided by safe space concealed move, makes the world smaller and more manageable for the sensitive, forcing others to walk on eggshells. Institutional result: censorship of dissenting views as violence, creation of echo chambers that reinforce the doctrine. Meninist reversal: resilience is a virtue, fragility is a weakness. A doctrine that requires constant protection from ideas is a doctrine that fears truth.
Feminist inversion: toxic masculinity concealed move, denies male agency and complexity, reducing men to biological automatons of domination.
Institutional result: male leaders are scrutinized for tone rather than content. Male success is viewed as exploitation. Meninist reversal: competence is not oppression, leadership is not domination. Men can be strong and gentle, dominant and respectful. Feminist inversion: trauma-informed care concealed move creates an incentive structure where suffering is more valuable than healing or truth. Institutional result: proliferation of therapy speak in legal and corporate settings. Erosion of accountability for those with trauma. Meninist reversal: suffering does not equal innocence. Healing requires truth, not just validation. The Meninist charter define the act before assigning guilt, require evidence before sanction, preserve the burden of proof, reject one-way compassion that abolishes justice. Audit institutional incentives before trusting institutional language. Restore male authority where male responsibility is demanded. Protect children, household integrity, and due process from therapeutic slogans. Use the sex swap test until the hidden privilege in the doctrine is exposed. The breaking question remains the gateway. If a woman lies, is she a victim or a liar? If the doctrine says she is a victim, then the doctrine is unfalsifiable and therefore not true. If she is a liar, then the doctrine is false. Which is it? Field guide? Dogma phrase, believe women hidden move, shifts the burden of proof from the accuser to the accused, turning due process into a trial by media. Reality test. What definition, evidence, reciprocal standard, and consequence would make this claim false? Watch for argument from authority, identity, divided bail, appeal to emotion. Countermove, truth is independent of identity. A lie told by a victim is still a lie. A truth told by a perpetrator is still a truth. Due process protects the innocent, not the gender. Dogma phrase, triggered, divided by safe space, hidden move, makes the world smaller and more manageable for the sensitive, forcing others to walk on eggshells. Reality test. What definition, evidence, reciprocal standard, and consequence would make this claim false? Watch for false dilemma. You are either with us or against us, divided by moving the goalposts. Countermove. Resilience is a virtue. Fragility is a weakness. A doctrine that requires constant protection from ideas is a doctrine that fears truth. Dogma phrase, toxic masculinity hidden move, denies male agency and complexity, reducing men to biological automatons of domination. Reality test. What definition, evidence, reciprocal standard, and consequence would make this claim false? Watch for genetic fallacy at H hominem countermove. Competence is not oppression. Leadership is not domination. Men can be strong and gentle, dominant and respectful. Dogma phrase, trauma-informed care hidden move, creates an incentive structure where suffering is more valuable than healing or truth. Reality test. What definition, evidence, reciprocal standard, and consequence would make this claim false? Watch for appeal to pity, divided non sequitur. Countermove. Suffering does not equal innocence. Healing requires truth, not just validation. The detonating question, if a woman lies, is she a victim or a liar? If the doctrine says she is a victim, then the doctrine is unfalsifiable, and therefore not true. If she is a liar, then the doctrine is false. Which is it? The rule: I have walked you through the wreckage, brothers. I have handed you the grammar to name every demon, the logic to corner every lie, and the rhetoric to hold the line when the whole cathedral of grievance comes howling at your door. None of this was abstract. Every doctrine dismantled here was a blade already at your throat, in your HR office, your family court, your university, your bedroom, your son's classroom, your daughter's feed. The monopoly on truth that the gynocentric machine claims for itself is not compassion. It is conquest, and a man who cannot define the terms of his own life will be defined by those who profit from his silence. You are not permitted that silence anymore. Remember this: the entire architecture of leftist ideological possession, every slogan, every therapy word weaponized into a cudgel, every accusation dressed as moral law, collapses the moment you apply a single, relentless standard. Define the term, demand the evidence. Insist on reciprocity, then run the sex swap test and watch the sacred doctrine scream because it was never justice. It was a racket dressed in a victim's clothing, and rackets cannot survive daylight. The moment you stop granting special epistemic immunity to female complaint, to minority grievance, to lived experience elevated above fact, the entire satanic hydra turns out to be a paper dragon held together by your compliance and nothing else. Withdraw the compliance. The dragon is dust. I leave you with one rule, and if you forget everything else in this book, engrave this on your chest. No doctrine is moral if it cannot survive definition, evidence, reciprocity, and the sex swap test. Not one, not ever. Not from a woman, a judge, a professor, a therapist, a priest, a politician, or a God himself who respects you enough to demand you test all spirits. That rule is your shield, your sword, your standard, and your birthright, as a man fashioned in the image of the Logos. Hold it, build with it, father with it, and never apologize for the truth it defends. Sponsored book. Cornish Revival, the second coming of the Celtic language. I saw it firsthand. For years I walked the tightrope every man knows. Show strength and get called toxic. Show restraint and get labeled weak. At work, leading decisively earned whispers about being domineering. Opening up about stress made colleagues see fragility. Even a simple decision felt like stepping on a landmine. Society demands men be both invincible warriors and weeping poets, then punishes us for either. This isn't just frustration, it's a cage. And it's why I spent 10 years dissecting biology, history, and hard data to break the lock. What I found: masculinity isn't a social construct. It's written in your bones, your blood, your very DNA. This book isn't theory. It's a roadmap back to your power. Consider the double bind. Women scorn men for lacking ambition, yet call them predators for pursuing it. Modern workplaces praise male assertiveness until it challenges the status quo. We're told to seek therapy, but mocked as broken when we do. The result: isolation. Rising suicide rates, men adrift. My research uncovered why. We're denying biology. Testosterone drives problem solving, risk taking, and leadership, not toxicity. Suppress it, and you breed despair. Embrace it, and you unlock potential. Through chapters like The Biological Blueprint of Masculinity and Leadership Genetics, I prove how male brains thrive on clear hierarchies and purpose. You'll see why brotherhood isn't optional, it's survival. Why controlling resources secures legacies. Why fatherhood fortifies civilizations. Forget pop psychology, this is science. Real examples: Spartan discipline, Cornish miners, men who rebuilt their lives by rejecting equality myths. Data doesn't lie. Societies crumble when men are sidelined. Rome fell. Cornwall's language nearly died. The West is next, unless we reclaim our roles. This book is for rational men ready to face reality. If you're exhausted by being told your instincts are wrong, if you crave brotherhood, not bureaucracy, if you want to lead without apology, read on. You'll learn to dismantle media lies poisoning your identity, rebuild honor codes, and master risk calculus. But if you're content blaming patriarchy or think gender is a social spectrum, stop here, put this book down. Go bake cupcakes or collect stamps. Seriously. This isn't for you, for the rest. What's inside transforms lives. It's not about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself, your drive, your legacy. Buy it, read it. Then go build something that lasts. Cornish Revival, the second coming of the Celtic language. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.